The Queen of Granada, by M. Riff. Chapter 55, Tobar. The sole witness to this impending catastrophe at the mouth of the bridge was the Land Rover driver. He had detached the VW bus and parked both vehicles at a safe distance from the road. Sitting behind the wheel of the Land Rover, he stared blankly ahead, lost in his thoughts. Life, to him, felt as tepid as the coffee in his cup. He toyed with the idea of starting the car and driving away, leaving it all behind. As he parked the Land Rover, engaged the handbrake, and turned off the engine, he returned to the Volkswagen for a cup of coffee from the pot. Perhaps he could allow himself a single cigarette, as well. His partner had confiscated his cigarettes in an effort to curb his smoking habit. In the long run, he knew he needed to quit entirely. As he pressed down on the handle of the VW bus and pushed back the lap door carefully and as silently as possible, he met a serious look from his daughter, Nuria, who had just turned 4. As if the daughter was convinced that the father would soon return for coffee and a cigarette, she sat in the dark and stared at him with wide-open eyes. As soon as she saw him, she said in a whispering voice, "Dad. You know you've been really, really stupid." She was sitting in an old rocking chair that they had picked up after closing hour, left over at a flea market in Malaga. To hold the loose parts together and prevent its incessant creaking, her father, Tobar, had tied it together crisscross with strips of a discarded bicycle tube. Nuria was hugging her yellow plastic beach bucket and wearing her pink rubber boots. She began swinging her legs under the chair and brought it to rock again, reminding the pendulum of a clock with the rest of the clock missing. Tobar looked at his wife, curled up under the blanket on the cabin bed. She had covered her eyes with a wet towel and pressed her hand to her temple in an attempt to stop the headache from splitting her head. He was aware that she had put his confiscated cigarettes in a drawer next to her bed. If he pulled out the drawer to grab a cigarette, it would make an annoying noise and the wife would certainly not like it. Her headaches were usually accompanied by hypersensitivity to both light and sound. Under those circumstances, giving up cigarettes seems to be the best option. He considered giving up the coffee as well and returning to the Land Rover, but he hesitated. Cautiously he climbed into the van, causing it to sway, worsening his wife's nausea. Without removing the towel from her face, she leaned over the bucket by the bed. There was not much in her stomach to come up. After a few vomiting sounds, she spat into the bucket. Nuria grabbed the cloth hanging on the arm of the rocking chair, dipped it in the water at the bottom of the yellow bucket, between her arms, and wiped her mother's mouth. Tobar poured himself lukewarm coffee and exchanged a look with Nuria. She knew that the father did not like cold coffee, and the father had noticed that Nuria had loosened the lid of the coffee pot to stop its buzzing, and irritating her mom, on top of her headache.